I love the film, by the way. I watched it last night. I thought it was so good. Really, really enjoyed it. I just wish someone gave me a baseball bat so I could have smashed that car up with you.
Oh my God.
Yeah, no, that was probably my my favorite moment ever on a set. Who wouldn't want to destroy a fucking car? And they were like, "Yo, you better do it right the first time."
He nailed it. He nailed it too. It was a scary moment, but you had no hesitation.
Hell no, let's break that fucking car. That shit was fire. Thank you, bro.
Yeah, but you both, I mean, you both get to smash it up. Mateo, there was a scene with you where you get to push all that thing that they always do in movies where you push everything off a mantelpiece. I've always wanted to do that.
That was, I got to smash Carly's work of art, everything that he'd ever worked for, you know, which was also, I don't think it was as nerve-wracking as the car, but I also got to definitely tear my room apart, which was interesting.
So I'll start properly with Moises. I mean, I was just wondering how you guys first came to be involved in the short movie all those years ago. Because I mean, obviously, a story of two Colombian brothers in a US set production. I mean, it was a kind of, the fact it fell onto your laps is perfect, really. But I just wondered how you first, came to be involved with that original story.
Yeah. I sort of forgot this, but Mateo reminded me that Esteban, the director, and Erick, I think, saw Kings of Summer. In Kings, there's a scene where I play Biagio, and, you know, that sounds like an Italian name. And there comes a scene where it's going to be pretty confusing. But the director on Kings of Summer was like, "Yo, do this scene in Spanish." And I was like, "What?" So he just made me freestyle the scene, and I just did it in Spanish. And the Colombian accent is kind of pretty prominent, like pretty prevalent, pretty noticeable. And so they saw the movie, and out of nowhere, I'm speaking Spanish in a Colombian accent. And they're like, "Oh my God, this dude's Colombian." Did a research, saw me and Mateo were brothers, and then we shot a short film that honestly is one of the most beautiful things that I've been a part of. And all those years later, they were just trying to come up with what the feature would be, and finally we were able to finish it. 4 or 5 years later.
Yeah, Mateo, when you were making that, were there discussions back then that there could be a feature film of this? Because it sounds, if it was such a rewarding experience for you, I'm assuming it's something you were wanted to maybe turn into a feature. But when did those kind of discussions take place?
I think the intention was always for it to become a feature. I've said this before, but I kept my hair at metal length for 5 years, just, you know, in hopes that this would become a feature. And I did it, you know, not mainly for Esteban and Erick, but I knew that I was going to break their heart if I were to do this back then, because it's like, you know, the whole identity of the character was, you know, his metal length hair. And so
year 2000.
Year 2000, exactly. So yeah, the intention, I think, was always for it to become a feature film. And, you know, I think they really tried their best. Like I said, the short had some success. You know, I think we were able to tour it, and it went to some festivals. And I think it wasn't until Macro really stepped in. You know, Macro were really the ones that stepped up to the plate, and they are the reason why the film was able to come to fruition, which we're definitely really grateful for, you know. But yeah, I guess the conversation was there from the beginning, but it was, let's make something special, you know, let's make the short organic and authentic and do the best we can do with this. And then
what's beautiful is the team, almost every important puzzle piece from the short, it was the same team from the short to the feature, is what I'm trying to say. The cinematographer, Ed Wu, is a master. And the whole team, the writer and director, Esteban and Erick. We couldn't have understood these characters without them. This is
our wardrobe, you know, even our wardrobe. She's amazing. She was the one, you know, who kind of came up with the identities of these characters as well, and she was there for the feature. So we kept the, you know, very important people that made the short what it was were the same people that made the feature what it was, you know.
Yeah, the short was quite a few years ago. Did you find it quite easy getting back into the heads of these characters, or did you have to kind of go back and watch it to refresh your memory?
Man,
it was the opposite. No,
Mateo, the character is such a young in the sense of maturity. He's so immature that I would say it's difficult to go back into his head. He's so what's that word? What's that?
Hard-headed.
Someone that's so hot-headed, just all that. So it's kind of, he's a tough character to empathize with, to sort of, you know, get in the rhythm of things personally?
Yeah, I guess for me it was the same. I really wasn't. I listen to a lot of different types of music, but heavy metal isn't necessarily one of the types of musics that I gravitated toward naturally. So for the short, I kind of Esteban shared a playlist with me, and I got into it. And so getting back into that rhythm was definitely, because the music was such a big part of these characters, and so it was just very clear to my psychology when I was getting back into Carly's headspace. It was like, all right, we're back in this. And honestly, the dynamic, I think I would say the most difficult part was just starting to speak to your sibling in your non-dominant tongue. We speak to each other in English. So just going back to us speaking in Spanish was the thing that kind of that kind of made it very clear, okay, we're getting back into a rhythm here.
It felt like really authentic Colombian dialogue. And also, I know it sounds like it's something we take for granted that we shouldn't do, but there were subtitles. There's so often in these movies, they just get actors just to put on an accent, but speak in English. That must have been such a relief to you that not only was it not subtitled and you were able to speak in that tongue for like authenticity purposes, but it seemed like the dialogue seemed so natural amongst all the characters too.
Definitely.
I would say that's thanks to a major thanks to Esteban and Erick, because they're authentically Colombian. They're Colombian. They made sure they pretty much got an entire Colombian cast, and we were able to tap in pretty seamlessly.
Not only that, our Colombian crew was like what we were aiming towards, what we were hoping to accomplish still in Atlanta when we were shooting the American half of the story, and not to but Atlanta was a lot tougher. It was a lot more difficult. It was the reverse of what you thought. Colombia was this easy. Everyone was working so hard, like everybody was giving their everything. So yeah, the production level was there in both Colombia and in Georgia. So or Bogota and Georgia. So I think that also allowed us to feel like, oh, okay, this is just like any other production that we've been on.
Yeah, because do you think this film feels quite relevant? Do you think it has a real kind of relevance to it in the sense that there's this? I think what this really shows is the value of refugee and immigrants when they move to other countries, and it's for me, it's what makes up the fabric of a nation, is a diversity of minds and cultures. And obviously, these two boys, although they're flawed, they bring so much to the community that they've kind of entered into. How important is it to remember this now more than ever? Because it seems right now in countries like Britain and the US becoming so internalized politically.
Yeah. Not only is it timely for these reasons, our new presidency and stuff like that, but what is going on in Colombia at the moment right now, which I'm sort of ignorant to because I don't know much about American politics to begin with. So, I have to hear through family, like, yo, have you not heard what's going on in Colombia and all this stuff? It's not directly tackling the situation that's going on in Colombia right now, but it is like you said, a story of refugees, of people that left for a reason. And I totally agree that what makes a country right now modernly what it is the diversity of cultures and the ability to coexist and blend, and I mean that's what I think major cities like Los Angeles and New York City and Atlanta, even Miami are. And I haven't been to London in a minute, but I remember being there and it being one of my favorite cities because of that reason.
Yeah. And Mateo, because do you think that by virtue of playing these characters, and I know obviously you guys have got sort of Colombian roots, but you're playing characters who have supposedly grown up in Colombia. Do you think that it brought you in some ways closer to your culture?
Say it again, I'm sorry?
Do you think it brought you in some ways closer to your culture by playing these characters?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, just because, in investing time into prepping for the character, you start to do your research. You start to talk to family more. You start to really just feel, because like my brother did a film called Monos, and I remember he stopped talking to me for 3 months because he didn't want to speak English to me. It's just like in preparation for that, he was so invested into Colombian culture, which is the same thing that that we did, you know. And being in Bogota, it's like, you know, you're eating Colombian food, you're doing, you know what I'm saying, you're just speaking with the Colombian crew and all of these things, you're just surrounded by the culture. You're fully, it's as if, you know, it's as if we grew up there, because I personally have never been in Colombia for more than 2 months at a time, 3 months at a time. But that for those 3 weeks that we were there, it was like, you know, I was living there, like I had a life there, and I had lived a life there, you know, and that played a huge role in bringing more authenticity to.
No doubt.
Yeah.
And Moises, I was going to ask, I mean, I'm assuming you're not too similar to your characters. I hope not in your case.
I hope not.
Was it quite important to make them quite different from yourselves? I guess as brothers, playing brothers, you have to create a disconnect, and you have to make them the fictional characters on the page. And if they were too similar to you, that blurring of reality and fiction might be quite tricky. So was it quite helpful in some ways that this character was so different to yourself?
Yes, definitely. It was. That is what I do like. I remember I had dreads. I cut them for a reason, and then I had growing out my hair, and I was excited. And then Esteban was like, "Yo, I want to shave your head and pierce your eyebrow," and I was like, "Oh my God, fuck." So I didn't want to do that because I know the process of growing it back and all that stuff, but ultimately it made me feel like Mateo. It gave me, you know, I looked in the mirror and I was like, oh gosh, okay. When I walked in the street, people would treat me differently. And, you know, all that does help psychologically.
Yeah. And foundationally, you know, Moises is the older brother. So it's just like off top, me playing the older brother already creates a friction, and it already creates like it's like we're diametrically opposite from, you know, what we are in real life. So that was immediately helpful in tapping into that. You know, that already was everything that needed to be different, you know, to really understand, because, you know, me and Moy are so close in age in real life, it's almost as if we're twins. For, you know,
Mateo's also taller than me, so I've never been able to like bully him with the big brother energy.
Was it quite fun being the older brother for a change, Mateo? I know my brother would love to be cast in a movie and be the older brother for a change.
I guess it was to a certain extent, but, you know, it did cause more natural friction that, you know what I'm saying, that needed to be there for certain scenes, you know.
Yeah.
But
Mateo's not very violent naturally.
That's what I was going to say in terms of you saying how different we are from our characters. Like, you know, Carly's like, I also feel like Carly is much more intellectually advanced than I am in real life. You know, Carly's a very, very intelligent character, but he's also an asshole. And I don't feel like, you know, and he feels entitled to be an asshole, but I would hope that I'm not as savage as Carly can be sometimes.
I can definitely say you're not.
Yeah. But you were saying one other thing that you didn't share in common with the character Mateo to begin with was obviously he liked metal, and that was a genre you didn't get on with. Have you been able to really find yourself getting into that style of music?
I have.
It's the only style of music that I can't seem. It doesn't seem to do it for me. I can listen to all sorts, but for some reason, and my friends have tried, but I've never really been able to properly break through. But if you have, it gives me hope that maybe it's not yours. For
real. And you know what? I feel like, because we had a scene where, you know, we were at a live show in the film, and I feel like when you really see performers, and this happened to me in real life too. I went to a metal show, but like metalheads, like for performers, they're actually the nicest dudes ever. And you would assume, you know, you would want to assume that it's another way, but I feel like it's such a cathartic experience for them to be on stage and raging the way they are, that it's just like any type of tension, or, you know, it's just kind of like the type of music is a release type of music. And once I understood, you know, the psychology behind it in a way, you know, not to look into it super deeply, but Colombian culture, you know, they really do appreciate their metal. And I kind of looked into why, you know, doing my research and whatever, just kind of like tapping into Carly. And it made me just understand. And I feel like, you know, you tend to like block things off when you don't understand them. And once I understood kind of the essence of it in a way, it allowed me to respect it and kind of just allow it into me. And yeah, so it did grow on me. And I can honestly not casually listen to it now, but it's much easier for me to listen to.
Of course, it's an important part as well, of course, of determining the kind of period this is set. But I was wondering, Moises, did you speak to kind of older family members that remember that time? I mean, I know it's not like we're going back to the 60s or 70s. It's not wildly different, but there are kind of nuances, aren't there, between different eras? I wondered if you spoke to friends or family who were around back in the late 90s or a bit older in the 90s to give you an insight into what it was like.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, with the final scene of the Lanceros and all that stuff, like that has been around for a long time, and definitely talked to my family about, what that means and how, that just makes sense full circle for the story of Mateo. But in terms of like reaching out to my family members, like you said, it's not the 60s or 70s, and most of my uncles are like, definitely 60 plus. So it would have been more so my cousins. And while in Colombia, who did we see while we were in Colombia? I feel like
Connie?
Like Connie, and I didn't think we saw Kevin or anything.
If I can tap into that question, it's honestly Esteban and Erick. They're the ones that like really, because there was certain lingo that me and my brother would use, and Esteban was like, yo, that's too modern. You can't use that. And so there was that guiding force, which is what a director, and a writer is supposed to be, a director. And they really were that guiding light that helped us understand more so the time period, because that is their time period, so we didn't really have to go much outside of, the immediate crew to kind of just understand.
Questions answered.
Yeah, exactly.
Mateo, I mean, obviously you two are both actors. It's quite rare that we get kind of siblings who are both kind of doing the same thing and doing it so successfully as you two. What was it about your childhood, do you think, that led to you guys being so creative? Were your parents quite kind of freeing in their kind of in what you could be when you wanted to grow up, or were you guys really into movies when you were kids? What do you think's led you guys down this path?
I mean, our parents for sure.
Yeah, we tried. Apparently, I don't remember much of this, but apparently we tried every sport imaginable and would kind of quit when it started getting too difficult. Like once kids started pitching their own baseballs and
we were like, nah, we're out, bro.
Like, we're good, no more of that. Basketball, soccer, all that stuff. And then
we got to experiment with a lot. And my mom, our mom was a stay-at-home mom, in the sense of like, she didn't even let babysitters around my brother and I. She was so 150% committed to us. And so she was, the reason why,
one day she was like, "You want to be actors?" And like, when you're 8 years old, you're like, "Yeah,
sure." Like, you do an acting class, and then things went from there. But
I was super shy. We should probably give a little back. I was super shy, and my mom thought, putting me in front of an audience would help, and it has, obviously. The scariest thing to do is to get in front of an audience and sort of give an opinion or say a monologue or whatever it is. So in terms of that opened our minds to that. But after being in Los Angeles, I definitely gravitated towards cameras, and Mateo definitely gravitated towards instruments and producing and singing. And so we definitely both found our creativity while still,
growing up, we would, before we even really tapped into that, we would just, when the iMac came out with the camera, me and my brother, we just started making dumb shorts, and we were just kind of playing around. And so we always, and we didn't necessarily go to public school. We were homeschooled because we had to work and we were doing other things. So we just had all the time in the world for creativity, because that was the only thing we would do, so we wouldn't be bored. And I think that's what led to what led us on the path.
It must be so helpful in this project that you guys are brothers, because there's an implicit kind of unspoken dialogue between brothers, isn't there? And I think the key thing is you can say anything. If you delivered a line wrong, you could say, "For fuck's sake, man." Whereas you might have that barrier between yourself and another actor where you feel like you can't. Was that quite helpful? And I think, and do you think that you guys got closer by making these films?
It's hard to I don't think I've met brothers closer than Mateo and me. We still live together. The only time we're apart is when we're working, and obviously on this movie we were working together. So, I mean, we had 2 separate rooms, but still, I mean, I guess that was so freaking awesome to be working away from your family, but your family is with you.
The only other thing my brother did, we did a Burger King commercial together when we were like 9 or 8 years old. That was, I think, the last time that we did something.
But to answer your question, definitely, like in those scenes when you are screaming, and again, reiterating that, lines in English are difficult. So in your non-dominant tongue to say a monologue at full like passion and full craziness is really difficult. And so Esteban would allow us to like grab Mateo and be like before a scene.
But you wouldn't be able to do, I mean, unless somebody was really a G, like it's hard to get physical with someone. You know, my brother and I obviously had no issue getting physical, which was annoying because it would cause to a lot of frustration between my brother and I during the shoot. But yeah, funny enough, like, I don't feel like the film brought us together just because we're already so close. You know, it's not like it brought us any closer. We're already so naturally that it felt very natural.
And we fight a bit, but not like these guys fight. These guys fight on a new level.
The only thing that must have frustrated, this is my last question before I go, was that, Moises, you're called Mateo in this. Did you ever go and just have a word with Esteban and just go, can you please change that? Or did you actually think, did you not mind that being the case?
Wait, what happened? You said what about Mateo?
Your character's name Mateo.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I've always thought that Mateo's the coolest name ever. So I thought that was genius. And yeah, the fact that Mateo's name is not Mateo in the movie and mine is, like, I definitely had no problem with it. Maybe Mateo had a problem with it.
No, I had zero issue with it. It was just definitely confusing at times on set, but no, it was cool.
Yeah, you should say if someone shouted Mateo, you just both turn around.
Yeah, that's exactly.
Well, thank you so much for your time today. Best of luck with the release. I've really, really enjoyed it. I can't wait to watch it again.
Thank you,
man, thank you. Great speaking to you, bro. Very, very cool.
Well, take care, guys. Best of luck, man. See you later.
All right, you too. Peace, bro.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're watching Hey You Guys.
Hey You Guys, huh?
Hey You Guys.
Is that from the Goonies?
It is indeed, yeah.
Nice.
Hey